using the Pythagorean theorem to find the side of a right triangle. A squared plus b squared equals c squared is the Pythagorean theorem. First, we need to know the sides of a triangle and label them. In a right triangle, the two shortest sides are the legs. The longest side, which is opposite the right angle, is the hypotenuse. Okay, let's do an example. The first step is to identify the legs and the hypotenuse of the right triangle. Remember that a triangle can be oriented in different ways, so you need to be careful about which ones are the legs and which one is the hypotenuse. Step 2 is to label the legs as A and B, and the hypotenuse as C. In our example here, A is x because that's one of the legs, B is 9, that's the other leg, and C is 15, which is the hypotenuse. Step 3 is to substitute in the values of A, B, and C into the theorem. So if A is equal to x, B is equal to 9, and C is equal to 15, then we can use our theorem A squared plus B squared equals C squared and say that x squared plus 9 squared equals 15 squared. The fourth step is to simplify. So all we're doing is taking the square of 9 and the square of 15. So we note that the square of 15, or 15 squared, is equal to 15 times 15. So our new equation will read x squared plus 81 equals 225, since the square of 9 is 81 and 15 squared is 225. Our fifth and final step is to solve for x, or any other variable. So x can be y, z, it doesn't matter, it can be any variable. We want to solve for it, so we want to get x all by itself. So let's start out with the equation. It reads x squared plus 81 equals 225. To get x squared all by itself, we need to subtract 81 from both sides since we're adding 81 to x squared. 225 minus 81 equals 144. So now x squared equals 144. We need to take the square root of both sides of the equation in order to get x by itself, since if we have a square and a square root, they cancel out. So we end up with x equaling 12. I made a couple notes that 12 times 12 equals 144, so the square root of 144 equals 12. I also made a note that the square root of star squared equals star. That means if you have anything, it can be anything, squared, and you take the square root of it, basically the square root and the square just go away and you're left over with whatever number is being squared. To wrap this up, our first step was we identified the legs and the hypotenuse of this right triangle. We labeled the legs as A and B and the hypotenuse as C. Our next step was to substitute in the values of A, B, and C into the theorem A squared plus B squared equals C squared. We simplified all that and solved for x and found that x was equal to 12. So that means in this right triangle, one of the legs is 9, the other leg is 12, and the hypotenuse is 15.